Chapter 69, The Supreme Status of the Daoyuan Class, Part 1, Timetable for Sophomore Class 3 is First Period, English. Second Period, Mathematics. Third Period, Language. Fourth Period, Geography. During the afternoon classes, Lu Shu had realized something rather meaningful. There were 4 students from his original sophomore Class 3, namely, himself, Lu Linqi, Li Qinjiu and Lu Li, who had entered the Daoyuan class although Li Qinjiu had been expelled. The 11 new transfer students were also all part of the Daoyuan class. It was told to them when Daoyuan classes had first started that they would still need to participate in the cultural lessons even as they rise up the academic levels, including the subjects' examinations as well. Even so, only Lu Shu and Jiang Shuyi were focusing on the lessons while the rest of them were keeping their eyes shut while they engaged in their training. The yin-yang kinship of the 3 was different from his celestial map as they could train even in the day. As such, these students were rushing to complete their training even in the day. According to Lu Li's personal experience, the day of training which Zai mentioned was actually half a day as it did not include the timing they were in classes during the day. This meant that they could be considered to be rushing through their training. Lu Li thought that if he could complete 2 cycles within a day as compared to 1 cycle the other people of Tier B aptitude could complete, wouldn't it leave Zai impressed? In actual fact, many of them were thinking the same thing as well. Lu Li had understood the practical benefits of training as he had already tasted the fruits of its labor firsthand. Furthermore, he was very troubled deep inside as he had received a complete beatdown from Lu Shu during this morning's arm wrestling. All he was thinking of was to complete the entire huge cycle as soon as possible in order to ascend out of the E class. The other students who had lower aptitudes were admiring the strength the Tier B students possessed and wished to obtain what they had as early as possible. As Lu Shu was browsing through his income records, he saw that Lu Li was training with his eyes shut even though he had continuously been receiving distress points of +10 +7 +8 from him. Looking at the initial 6,000 plus distress points he had received from the early part of the day, it had just exceeded 7,000. Even as he trained, he did not forget to help out his classmate. What a great man! But aren't you becoming a little too obsessive? Lu Shu was unsure of whether to cry or laugh at this situation. Lu Shu had to give it to the person who had invented this training method since it did not require the tranquil environment as stated in the legends in order to practice it. All they needed to do was to direct the magical energy into the root of their base chakra, simple and convenient. The last period was geography, which was taught by their form teacher, Shi Qingyan. Just as he entered the class, Shi Qingyan noticed this trend where all those Daoyuan class students were training with their eyes closed and that they did not even realize that a teacher had walked in. Shi Qingyan had remembered that luckily, the Wuchang International School did not have the tradition where high school students would stand at attention and greet the teachers whenever they were to set foot into the class. Or else, with those Daoyuan class students sitting down as they continued their training without even moving at all, it would surely come as a blow to the teacher's pride and dignity. Lu Shu continued to observe Shi Qingyan's expression and realized that he did not intend to disrupt the Daoyuan class students' training. This was because he had already understood that in today's society, those who were in the Daoyuan class were considered to have a higher social status. Lu Shu had also read in the forums that Daoyuan classes had also been established in universities. Currently, there were some materialistic girls who would gladly throw themselves at the guys next to them if they had been enlisted in the Daoyuan class. The number of such girls was few, just like the number of boys who would go to the nightclub as gigolos in order to make a living. In the past, these girls would usually gather outside famous aviation schools as they felt that the boys there would normally be pilots after graduating and be earning hundreds of thousands every year. Such logic was just shocking, and now, their sights were placed on the Daoyuan class students. But of course, they did not include the Tier E and Tier F students, as if they weren't considered to be part of the Daoyuan class. Being a guy himself, Lu Shu felt elated as he saw this thread on the forum. Can these girls please throw themselves at me? As he saw the last part concerning the Tier E and F students, Lu Shu let out a laugh. Why was there so much discrimination in this society? Are we, E and F tier students, not considered humans as well? Lu Shu suddenly felt rather curious and asked Jiang Shuyi, why aren't you training? Don't you have to rush through it? Daoyuan class is obviously segregating us into different places for first, second and third class students, and the better you performed in your abilities would mean that you would be placed further in front. Perhaps in the future, when they distribute resources such as weapons, you would receive more of it. Jiang Shuyi shot him a look before replying in a soft voice, although the magical energy around here has been replenished, there is always a limit to how much magical energy a location would have. After depleting the location's energy, it requires time for it to be replenished. Thus, there are laws and rules you have to follow while training, and it's very important where you carry out your training. If someone with Tier F aptitude like you were to train in an energy-rich location while someone with a Tier B aptitude were to train in an energy-depleted location, perhaps the speed at which both of you are training at could be the same. Lu Shu thought about it for a while and agreed that it really was as such, and Jiang Shuyi wasn't spouting nonsense. Although the current energy in the area had been replenished, it wasn't similar to the air in the atmosphere where it could be immediately replenished the moment you have depleted it. It was more like a piece of cheese. The moment you finished it, it was gone for good. You would only be able to continue eating once the chef had served you yet another piece. As such, was there somewhere in this world where the magical energy in the area was bountiful, where it was higher than other places by a few folds or even tens or hundreds of folds? It's not impossible. Lu Shu wouldn't naively believe that everyone in this world was dismissive towards the idea of training, as there would surely be some of them out there who were extremely interested in it. If metahumans were to become the world's most important resource one day, perhaps every single one of these predators would be out there fighting for these useful resources in frenzy, much like the current state of the business world. Thus, aptitude wasn't the only deciding factor in one's training speed. Furthermore, there's nothing in this world which was controlled by just a single factor. And in actual fact, even if one's aptitude was mediocre, one would still be able to achieve something through training. His Desky really did know quite a lot of stuff. Lu Shu curiously asked, how is this related to my question? Lu Shu's actual question was, why wasn't Jiang Shuyi rushing to complete his training during lesson time? Jiang Shuyi inched closer and whispered, there are 12 people training in this class currently. Even the class next door and all the other classes have students who are doing the same. All of them require this magical energy, and our school isn't a place which is blessed with the abundance of energy. How can it supply enough energy to all these people who are training now? Oh, Lu Shu clearly understood what he meant. If he had to compete with this many people for magical energy, he would have might as well save himself the effort. That's true. There were over 1,000 metahumans who were training in this one school, and the rate at which the energy was going to be depleted would definitely be shocking. This was the reason why Jiang Shuyi did not bother to train in school at all, and it was also the reason why Zifei had said, don't bother trying it out at school, do it at home. Lu Shu had already viewed Jiang Shuyi in a different light, and this explanation from him further strengthened his impression of Jiang Shuyi. This dude must have definitely learned something from his family, as he had already made full sense of this reasoning while the others were still foolishly training and competing with each other for the magical energy.